It's been a few weeks since I found out the surprising news that I have a little brother. Dr. Valentine has been telling me a little more about him at each of our therapy sessions. I now know that he's 1.5 years old, his birthday is March 22nd, and his name is Zachary. I've asked to see a picture of him, and Dr. Valentine says she thinks that would be a great idea and I should ask my parents to send me one. But I'm really starting to worry because I haven't been able to get in contact with my father since the night the changeling, came to visit me. Even the staff has tried to call and email, but they haven't gotten a response either. I turned 18 last week, and today Dr. Valentine informed me that I'll be transferred to the facility for adults in 3 days. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to think of a way to get out of here before then. I'll never be able to save Zachary once I'm at the new facility. It's over an hour away from here. For the next 2 days, I repeatedly attempt to call home. I even try my parents' cell phones, but all of them just keep going to
You have reached the
voicemail.
voicemail box
During my
of...
last session with Dr. Valentine, I expressed my concerns to her once again. Something isn't right. I can feel it. Please, can you just send someone over there to check on them? Or better yet, maybe you can stop by on your way home tonight. Please, doctor, I'm really worried. It's not like my dad to just not return my calls. She interjects. Maybe he's trying to give you some time to digest the fact that you have another sibling. Yeah, maybe, I agree. Then she continues. But I guess it wouldn't hurt to stop by and let them know that you've accepted it and you'd even like to meet him. Thank you so much. You're welcome, she tells me with a smile. The following day, an orderly comes into my room and wakes me earlier than usual to give me time to pack before I eat breakfast, because today is the day that I'm being transferred. I get dressed, and once I've finished gathering my things and packed them into my tiny suitcase, I peek my head out into the hall and ask the nurse on duty if Dr. Valentine has gotten in yet. She tells me that she'll be in at 8 a.m. I glance at the clock on the wall above her head, 7:45. I go back into my room, close the door, and sit on my bed to wait. At 8 a.m., there's a knock on my door. I leap up to open it, anticipating a visit from Dr. Valentine, but it's just an orderly bringing me breakfast. I thank him and start to eat. Lukewarm oatmeal is on the menu today. It's not great, but it's a nice change from the rubber eggs we're usually served. About 20 minutes later, the orderly returns to collect my tray and informs me that the transport van is ready. I grab my suitcase from my bed and he escorts me to the front entrance. Just as I'm walking out the door, I hear the sound of high heels rushing toward me. Abby, wait! I turn around to see Dr. Valentine. She approaches me out of breath and gives me a hug. I'm so glad I caught you. I wanted to say goodbye and wish you the best of luck with your recovery. I cringe every time I hear that word. It makes me sound like I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict or something, but there's nothing wrong with me. As she pulls away from our embrace, I grip her by the arm and ask, "Did you talk to my dad?" She looks at me with a sad look, like she doesn't want to tell me something. What is it?" I question nervously. She pulls me aside and tells me, "Abby, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to speak to him. I went by there last night, but no one was there. The house appeared to be empty. It looked like they moved away." My heart starts to race. What do you mean? No, they wouldn't do that. Tears start to flow down my cheeks as I think about how I've been left all alone once again. Although I'm used to it, it still hurts just the same. Dr. Valentine gives me one last hug and walks with me to the van. Everything is going to be okay. I'll give you a call at the new facility when I find out what's going on, she promises. As I climb up into the back of the van, I slip a small piece of duct tape over the latch. The only other people traveling with me are the driver and one orderly who is sitting in the back of the van. As we pull away from the facility, a million thoughts start to race through my mind. I still don't have a foolproof plan yet, but if I don't come up with one in the next hour, I might as well say goodbye to the chance of ever saving my little brother. After driving for a while, I start to wonder if my duct tape trick is going to work. I saw it on a prank show on YouTube once, where some kids kept putting a piece of tape over the locks in their parents' cars, and while they were driving, the doors would just suddenly pop open. I thought it was a funny little trick at the time, but now I'm counting on it to get me out of here. I glance over at the orderly. He's entranced by whatever he's looking at on his phone. Next, I look up front at the driver. He's smoking a cigarette and jamming out to the music that's playing. Suddenly, we pull onto a back road and I'm being tossed around in my seat because the road is so bumpy. I manage to unbuckle my seatbelt when the orderly isn't looking. He looks up from his phone to take a peek at what I'm doing every 5 minutes or so. When I got into the van, I immediately realized that it didn't resemble the typical transport vans that are used for prison inmates. It has no steel cage blocking the door handle. I'm not sure if it's locked from the inside, but I figure, why not take my chances? I know for sure that I could at least outrun the driver. He's overweight and smokes, so I doubt he's a very fast runner. The orderly, I'm not so sure about. But just as I'm about to attempt to make a run for it, a better chance presents itself. I guess my little trick worked because the door swings partly open. The orderly bangs on the partition, separating the back of the van from the front, and the driver turns down the music. "Pull over, the door popped open," the orderly tells him. "This old piece of shit, they need to buy new vans," he whispers as he unbuckles his seatbelt and gets up to go take care of it. Once he exits the van, he slams the door a few times, but it bounces back open. The last time he attempts to close it, I take my chance. I leap up and kick it as hard as I can, causing the door to swing back. I hear a crunching sound, which I can only assume is the orderly's nose being broken. He falls to the ground and moans in pain. I hear the driver turn off the ignition, but before the driver's side door is even open, I've already leapt out of the van and darted across the road and into the woods. I dash through them as fast as I can, hearing the driver running after me, but he soon falls behind. I can still hear his wheezing and shouting, but it's now far in the distance. I guess he couldn't keep up with my pace, just like I thought. I pick up my pace and run faster, because I know that they'll be calling the police any minute. About 30 minutes later, I exit the woods, all scratched up and dirty from the many times I tripped and all of the branches that smacked me in the face. I see a car coming down the road, so I lift my right thumb and stick it out. I let out a sigh when it drives right past, but then a few seconds later it stops up ahead and pulls over to the side of the road. I race toward it before the driver changes their mind. Thankfully, the facility let me change back into regular clothing so that I don't look like a crazy person. I'm just about to climb into the front passenger seat when I see a young woman sitting there. A man is driving the car, and there are 2 small children in the back. "Are you all right? Do you need me to call the police?" the woman asks with a worried look on her face. "Oh no, I'm fine. I got lost in the woods trying to find my way to the road. I just got a little scratched up, but really, I'm all right." "Where are you headed?" she asks. I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, I can't go back home. Dr. Valentine said that no one was there, and even if they were, that's surely the first place the police will look for me. Then it hits me. If I want to find a way to end this, to get rid of the changeling once and for all so that it can't hurt Zachary, then I have to go back to where it all began. I have to go back to Grandma's house. "Forest Lake," I tell the woman. "Well, this must be your lucky day. We're headed right in that direction." I climb into the back seat with the children. One is a little girl, probably about 3 or 4, and the other is a baby. I can't tell if it's a boy or a girl because it's bundled up snugly in its car seat, fast asleep. The little girl smiles at me as I buckle my seatbelt. "What's your name?" she asks. "Abby, what's yours?" "Savannah, and this is my little brother Sammy." "I have a little brother too. His name is Zachary," I tell her. The little girl doesn't say much after that. She goes back to playing games on her tablet. However, the woman and man have some questions. They want to know why I'm headed to Forest Lake. I tell them that's where my grandmother lives. Then they want to know what I'm doing way out here. So I decide to just tell them that I was camping with some friends and we got separated. Then I ended up getting lost. I called my grandmother and I was just about to ask her to come get me, but my phone died. They warned me how dangerous it is to be hitchhiking and accepting rides from strangers. Then they say that I should be so glad that they were the ones who stopped to pick me up and not some psychopath. I agree with everything they tell me. Then I lie my head back and doze off. The woman wakes me when we get to Forest Lake. I ask them to drop me off at a store near where my grandma used to live. So they do, and once they drive off, I ask to use the restroom so that I can wash my face and fix my hair. Then I walk the rest of the way there. When I turn onto the street where the house is located, I slowly approach the walkway. I debate turning around and just forgetting about the whole thing. I'm sure that all of Grandma and Grandpa's things are gone by now anyway. I mean, it's been years. But then I think about Zachary, so I knock on the door. A moment later, I hear someone shuffling across the floor to answer it. The knob twists and the door slowly creaks open. A tall, scrawny woman steps into the doorway. The small gray bun on top of her head is so tight that it pulls the skin on her face back, giving her a strained look. Her nose is like a hawk's beak, and her small beady eyes scan the porch. A rose-colored cardigan sweater hangs loosely from her feeble bones, and her khaki pants look like they're just about ready to fall off of her, too. Her gaze locks onto me, her pink-painted lips turning up into a smile, revealing traces of lipstick on her yellow-stained teeth. She opens the screen door. "How can I help you, sweetheart?" I'm so sorry to bother you, but my grandparents used to live here. My parents never cleaned out the attic when they passed away. And I was just wondering, did you get rid of the boxes that were up there when you moved in? Oh no, dear. Everything is right where they left it. I've only been up there once. Those stairs are just too much on these old bones. I smile. Well, would it be okay if I came in and took a look? Of course. I haven't had guests in a long time. I'd sure enjoy the company, she says, holding the screen door open wider. I step inside and take a look around. It looks a lot different from when my grandma used to live here. I shiver when a cold breeze blows as the lady shuts the door behind me. Would you like some tea, dear? Oh, yes, please. I used to drink tea with my grandma all of the time. I can bake some cookies to go with it if you'd like, she offers. What kind do you like? I have a few different recipes I can whip up while you look through the attic. Gingerbread are my favorite. Ugh, oh no, dear. I can't stand the taste of those. What about chocolate chip, lemon, or shortbread? I'll take shortbread, I shout toward the kitchen as a chill runs down my spine. Call me paranoid, but anytime someone tells me that they don't like gingerbread, only one thought comes to mind. I decide to take a look around the living room while I'm waiting for the tea and cookies. I find it somewhat strange that the lady has no photos at all in her house. Here you go, dear, she says as she places my cup of tea on the coffee table. I thank her and take a seat. I'm just about to take a sip of the tea when I realize that she's not drinking any. Aren't you going to have some, I question? Oh no, dear. I had a cup right before you arrived. Go ahead, before it gets cold, she tells me, motioning for me to drink it. I lift the cup to my mouth and pretend to take a sip. It's really good, but it's still pretty hot. Why don't I take a look around the attic while I wait for it to cool off? She nods her head in agreement, leans back in her recliner, and pulls the handle to raise the footrest. Dust goes flying everywhere, some of it landing right on the coffee table and floating in my tea. Well, go ahead, dear. You remember where it is, don't you? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I never asked you your name. My name's Abby. Mary, dear. My name's Mary. Thanks again for everything, Mary. I'll be right back. Mary turns on the television, and I make my way down the hallway to the attic door. Abby, dear, you may want to take a flashlight with you. I don't know if the lights work up there, she calls from the living room. There should be one in the drawer next to the refrigerator. I make a detour to the kitchen, find the flashlight right where Mary said it would be, then head back to the attic door. Thanks, I found it, I shout toward the living room as I open it. I climb the steep steps and reach up to pull the string dangling next to the light bulb, but nothing happens. Mary was right, so I turn on the flashlight and it illuminates the messy room, revealing a space full of old furniture inches deep in dust, scattered books and papers, tons of boxes, and cobweb-covered walls. Just the way Grandma left it, I think to myself with a smile. I walk over to one of the cardboard boxes, flip open the flaps, and look inside. I find a stack of black and white pictures of Grandpa with people that I do not recognize. Once I finish looking through them, I find some old letters that Grandpa wrote to Grandma when he was away on his many adventures. I read through each one of them, but find no mention of the changeling. So then I set that box aside and start digging through the one beneath it. In that one I find some old coins and a map of Cambodia. There's a red star right next to the town of Phnom Penh. Assuming that's just the place that he visited when he traveled to Cambodia, I set the map aside and pull out the next thing. It's an old journal, and the pages are very fragile. I carefully open it to the first page. It says, "My trip to Cambodia, August 1978, and it's written in Grandpa's handwriting. I breathe a sigh of relief because I know that this will be the most likely place that will tell me the story of how Grandpa found the changeling. I flip to the next page, shine the flashlight at it, and begin to read. Albert, Clarence, and I have just arrived in the capital. I've been informed that this is where there have been numerous sightings of it. We will begin our research tonight by interviewing some of the townspeople. They do not know why we are here, and it's very important that no one finds out. It could compromise our entire mission." I look up from the journal as my heart starts to race. He didn't mention the changeling by name, but I'm almost certain that it's what he's talking about. I continue to read. I spoke to some of the townspeople last night. Most of them were too frightened to say anything. Some said that they don't believe it. They think it's just a myth or a fairy tale used to scare children who have been misbehaving. A few of them told me their suspicions of who they think it could be. Others looked at me like I could be it. That made me start to think that it's probably not a good idea to be talking to them. I don't know these people. It could be any one of them, and I wouldn't even know it until it's too late. And if it is one of them, they could be feeding me false information to lure me away from them. They could even be following me right now, preparing to kill me when I'm all alone. I flip to the next page and continue reading. Albert has gone missing. He never returned to the hotel last night. After talking to some of the locals who were at the bar with him, one of them came forward and told us that they saw him in the alley behind the bar with a woman, confirming what Clarence and I already thought. But he didn't want to say much else, and he had a terrified look on his face. After that, I started to do some research and found out that changelings are deathly allergic to iron. Iron reacts strongly with their abilities, and it causes a violent allergic reaction in the form of a burn. This starts out resembling a rapid and intense sunburn, but prolonged contact with iron can cause the changeling's flesh to blacken and die. Some other things that I've learned about changelings are that although they tend to have human diets, they have a fondness for sweets and milk. Also, changelings are unable to tell an outright lie. They can bend the truth, they can talk in circles around the truth, but they can't lie. If they do, they're considered to be an oath breaker, and their abilities, if not their life, is forfeit. I've got to think of something, a way to trap it before it can hurt anyone else. Normally I just kill it, but it's just too risky. Even if I thought I 100% knew who it was, there's always that slight chance that I could be wrong. And I can't take that chance, because I would never forgive myself for killing an innocent person. I pause for a moment and think to myself, that's the exact same problem that I've been having. Roger died because I was wrong when I thought he was the changeling, and I almost killed that nurse Kate too when I thought she was it. A tear drips from my face onto the yellowed paper of the journal. I raise my finger and wipe another from my cheek that's just about to fall, then continue reading. Albert finally showed up last night at the hotel after being gone for days. He was staying with some woman, and after her booze and money ran out, he decided it was time to leave. Well, while he was gone, Clarence and I were busy. We finally have a plan. We're going to go to the busiest bar in town and act like we're drunk. We're going to hang out there all night, running our mouths to as many people as we possibly can. We'll tell them that the police have evidence. The changeling left something behind at the crime scene of its last murder, something with some DNA on it. Hopefully this information will lure the real changeling out so that Clarence and I can trap it. I paused to flip the page once again. So we went out to the bar last night. Clarence and I were talking, running our mouths all night long. But none of the patrons seemed to care about anything that either of us had to say, and I just can't understand why. Someone should have come forward by now. But Clarence says we shouldn't give up so easily. He wants to go back tomorrow night and try again. I hear the attic door creak at the bottom of the steps. Abby, dear, are you all right up there? The cookies are done and your tea is going to get cold, Mary says. I clear my throat and reply, Yes, I'm almost done. Then I hear the shuffling of her slippers heading down the hallway toward the living room. I flip the page once again. There was a man at the bar last night acting very suspicious. He was asking a lot of questions about the changeling, and he kept prying to see what more we knew about the police investigation. So we did what we had to do. We got him nice and drunk and then invited the guy back to our hotel for some more drinks. But that was just so that we could get him out of the bar, away from prying eyes. Of course he accepts, and as he stumbles out of the bar, he keeps asking more and more questions. As soon as we get outside, I send Albert to get the car, and when he pulls up out front, I distract the guy long enough so that Clarence can come up behind him and tackle him to the ground. Then he locks him in the iron chains we brought along. The man starts writhing in pain. He's yelling and cursing up a storm. So I grab him and toss him in the trunk. Once we're a little ways down the road, Clarence tells Albert to pull over, so he does. Then Clarence says that he wants to drive, so they swap seats, but he turns the car around and starts driving in the opposite direction. I ask him, what in the hell is he doing? This isn't part of the plan. We already had a place picked out where we were going to take the changeling once we caught it. But he tells me he found somewhere else, and it's the perfect place, even better than the one we'd found before. Clarence had been acting strange all day, and I hate to say it, but deep down in my gut, I was starting to have suspicions about him possibly being the changeling. We drive for a while, and then once we're outside of town, he turns down a dirt road surrounded by nothing but woods. When he comes to a stop and we get out of the car, I tell Clarence to give me a hand with the guy in the trunk, but he tells me he has to take a leak and walks off. Now I swear he took a piss right before we left the bar. Albert walks off as well and lights a cigarette, leaving me all alone to lug the guy out of the trunk. So I do. But as I'm dragging him out, I notice that he doesn't have any burns or blackened skin on his wrists and ankles where the chains are restraining him. Immediately I start questioning the guy, asking him why in the hell does he keep asking so many damn questions. I don't give him a chance to reply, I just keep going. I shout at him, only the changeling would want to know all those things you were asking. Then his eyes widen in fear as he focuses on something behind me. I turn around and see Albert pacing back and forth, still puffing away on his cigarette. He's holding a bat, and he glances over at us and screams, "We know you're the changeling." In a shaky voice, the man tells me, No, sir. Listen, I didn't tell you the whole story before. Remember when I told you I saw your friend in the alley behind the bar with a woman? I stop and think to myself for a minute, because I thought the man looked familiar. That's when I realize he's the same man who talked to us when Albert went missing. He tells me to come closer, like he has a secret to tell me. I whisper to him, I already know he was with that woman. But he says, No, you don't understand. She was feeding on him. And when she saw that I was watching them, she climbed up the side of the building and disappeared. That's not your friend, he warns me. A chill runs down my spine, realizing that if what this man just told me is true, then my partner is the changeling. Just as I'm contemplating what to do, Albert walks up behind me and says, Oh, you saw that, huh? Then he turns to me and tells me, It was fun being a part of your little monster hunting crew, but now I'm going to have to kill you all. I'm going to rip you apart piece by piece. Then he raises the bat and is just about to swing it at me when I hear a shot ring out, and then Albert collapses to the ground. That's when I see that there's a dart in his chest. I look over in the direction that it came from and see Clarence standing there. He doesn't take his eyes or the gun off of Albert, but he yells for me to get over there next to him. Not knowing what in the hell is going on, I start to run toward him, but Albert leaps up and begins to chase me. He's inches away from my face, and I'm thinking, this is it, I'm about to die. Then he just suddenly stops. I ask Clarence, what in the hell is going on? Why did he just freeze like that? Then I see a huge circle of crushed eggshells surrounding Albert and the car. I remember reading in my research that it's believed that broken eggshells protect against changelings, which is why they stopped Albert from leaving the circle. I asked Clarence how in the world did he know? I had no idea. He tells me that he started to suspect Albert was the changeling when he said something strange earlier tonight while we were at the bar. Suddenly, 2 more shots ring out, and when I turn around, Albert falls to the ground once again. But he manages to say one last thing before the tranquilizer kicks in. He warns me that my whole bloodline will suffer his wrath for what I've done to him. Clarence and I tried so many times to kill it, but it just wouldn't die. So the only other choice there was is to hold it prisoner for eternity so that it can't hurt anyone else. And I decided to take this task among myself. I just have to figure out how I'm going to tell Martha. I close the journal just as Mary calls from the bottom of the stairs. Abby, darling, I made you a fresh cup of tea. Now hurry down before these cookies get cold. Coming, I answer as I gently place the journal back into the box. I walk down the stairs and close the door. Mary notices the solemn look on my face and asks, Is everything all right, dear? Did you find what you were looking for? Yes, I'm fine, and I found exactly what I was looking for, I reply, thinking to myself as we head to the living room. I've been using all of these things, the eggshells and the ginger for defense against it, when all along I should have been using it for offense, to lure it in and trap it. Now I know what I need to do next. I have to capture it just like Grandpa did, and I know exactly how I'm going to do it. Don't forget to subscribe for new stories weekly. See you next time on
Nina's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.